Greetings, this is James Gillen with As You Wish Talk Radio. We've got a great show tonight. I have a couple of announcements to make. Those of you who are feeling a little off-kilter, it's because there's 2 solar flares hitting the planet as we speak. And we've talked a lot about this solar cycle 24 and how it's going to be increasing. So they do affect your bioelectric fields and, create some pretty crazy weather. And we definitely have some hurricanes building out in the ocean. So a little heads up on that one. We've also got some big full moon energies coming in this month that are going to create a lot of changes. So, pay attention. The Stanford research did a lot of research institute did a lot of work with monkeys, and they exposed them to fluctuations in the magnetic fields, and they exhibited behavior from comatose to self-mutilation. So we have a choice. We don't have to act like monkeys. We can be aware of these shifts and these changes and override them and use them, ride them, use them to, in your own awakening and healing process. So anyway, it's just good to know that you're not crazy. People are wigging out for a reason, and if you're feeling these changes happening in your own body, it's good old Ra out there giving us a blessing. We've got a few other things I wanted to talk about, but I think I'm going to skip them and just go right into the show. I have a good guest. It's Yshatar, and she's the creator of the Starseed website. It's starseeds.net, and she was born in Brooklyn, New York, and currently residing in Maryland. And her awakening began at 8 years old and has exponentially increased over the last few years. And she's working to create a resource for awakening starseeds via the web. So with that being said, I want to welcome Yshtar to the show. Are you with us?
Yes, happy to be here and sharing with everyone and having the opportunity, James, to speak with you. And, your website was one of the first I went to when, had the internet and my awakening was happening. And, I was like, wow, there's really a place like this?
Yeah, so many people come here and they're having all these outrageous experiences, and then they see them validated on the website and they go, wow, wait a minute, this is real, and it helps support them just like you're doing. I love what you're doing there with your Starseeds program, and there are so many people, especially young people right now, that are awakening to their soul connection to these higher beings, and you're providing an avenue for them to express themselves in a support base.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have, when I awakened, I didn't have that support myself, and I think that made it a little bit more difficult than it should have been, not having a place to bounce my experiences off of, and because I tried to explain to my mother what was happening, and that was the wrong idea. So, after that, I was like, wait a minute. I want to create some place where everyone else can come and share their experiences, because it really is something profound and powerful, and it completely changes your entire life and everything you thought you knew. And the world doesn't really get it the way they should, because it seems like, you try to explain and they're looking at you like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, there really isn't much support out there.
Yeah, and, so I created the website, and all of a sudden everyone just poured in, and I didn't really know where they were coming from, because when I first created it, I wasn't advertising it as much as I should. But it seems like people just poured in on their own. They found it.
Yeah, I had a conversation the other day with a woman that nobody would have believed that she was connected and had all these experiences, and she looked like a very straight woman, glasses, and I was sitting there with a friend of mine, and I just started talking to her, and all of a sudden she just opened up and started saying all these things, and about she saw ships, and her whole family's been seeing ships, and all these incredible experiences. And we walked away, and he was just blown away, and he said, he said, that blew my mind. He goes, I would have never, ever thought that woman had a clue at all, about what was going on. And he said she just opened up, and what was amazing is he heard her talking later to some other friends, and she said it was the most profound experience she'd ever had, that finally she could actually talk about it, and it just made her whole day. She said that she could actually come out and found somebody she could actually talk about this with, and that's the same service that you're providing.
Oh, it's so important.
Now, what was your story? I'd love to hear your story, how the opening began, and some of the experience you had during the process.
Well, when I was, like you said, James, before, it all started when I was 8 years old. Now, the thing is, it could have, a lot of the things, when I was little that occurred to me, I attribute sometimes to the stories that my family used to tell me when I was little. I mean, my bedtime stories were stories about UFOs. But, my mom told me stories, encounters that she had with UFOs, and encounters that her mother and father had with UFOs, my grandparents. And, she said that this was because they lived in Puerto Rico, and allegedly she said there was a underground base in Puerto Rico, in Arecibo. And she said that my grandfather would experience missing time and all of that stuff. But, when I was little, I had my first contact experience when I was 8 years old. I was standing outside with my family, and they looked up, we all looked up, and there was this large object in the sky. I mean, it was so large, it looked like a blimp. But being a kid with a father who loves baseball and took me to Yankee Stadium all the time, we always saw blimps, at the stadium. And I knew the difference between a blimp and an object that's, I believed, wasn't supposed to be in our airspace. It was metallic, it was saucer-shaped, and at the time I was terrified because I had watched a lot of the movies that a kid shouldn't watch, regarding extraterrestrials, because I felt an affinity towards anything regarding space and ETs. So I wanted to watch every movie. It didn't matter if it was positive or negative. I just wanted to watch them. But I ran inside and I said, Ma, that's not a blimp. That's a spaceship. And she said, no, what are you talking about? It's not a spaceship. I was like, I'm telling you, Ma, there's a spaceship. So then, after the incident, we went back outside, and I tried to talk to my friends about it. I tried to talk to neighbors about the experience. And the strange thing was that no one remembered ever even being outside. And I remembered, but everyone else was like, well, I was never outside that day. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You saw it with me. But, I've had contact all my life since I was 8. That's why I say that my awakening began then. And by the time I was in my teens, I started feeling like something was, I felt like something was wrong with me. I felt, because I couldn't think like everyone else around me, so I felt that something was wrong with me. I felt like maybe, I was crazy or something like that. Because I would go to church and I just couldn't agree with what was being said. I couldn't find myself to give in to the fear that they were expressing, like going to hell or I couldn't understand it. So after a while, I began to really go within and wonder, why was I so different and why was I so attracted to things that had to do with extraterrestrials and space. And because when I was little, my mom told me when I was little, we were outside and we were at a park, I think, and it was nighttime, and I was staring at the stars, and I told her, I want to go back home. And my mother, being the great cautious mother she is, she thought that I was suicidal. She thought that I wanted to kill myself and go to heaven. And I tried to explain to her that that wasn't the case. I just wanted to go back to my home, wherever it was. So I was in therapy for a while. But, the therapist always said there was nothing wrong with me. There's nothing that they could find that was wrong with me, other than having a very extreme, vivid imagination. But I started researching different things, and so many synchronicities happened when I began to say, okay, you know what, something's wrong with me, but I don't think it's something wrong. I just think I'm different. And, it came a time when I couldn't find the answers. Well, I found answers, but I couldn't find the answers that I personally was looking for, like a confirmation. And I said, I just went outside. I looked up at the sky, and I said, God, please give me a sign. I need something, because, I'm having these dreams and experiences, and I don't know what's going on. And after that, information began just pouring into my soul, pouring into my heart center. I would go on the internet, and it was just, I would have these phrases to look up, and I had no idea what they meant. And I would just look them up, and I was like, oh, wow, that really fits me. And one time I turned on the TV. I turned on the TV because I was just having I used to talk to God a lot. I still do. Mm-hmm. But I turned on the TV after having a conversation with God, asking if I was from this world. Because I had an inclination, but to me that was insane because, no one thinks that way. At least that's what I thought back then. So I turned on the TV after that, and here's how powerful it is when you have a message from. It doesn't matter how the message comes to you. It can come to you in so many ways, but Spirit does answer you. I turned on the TV, and that's when UFO Hunters was on, and it was the episode when Bill Burns was talking to one of his investigation cases, and he told the gentleman, right as I turned on the TV, he told the gentleman that he was a cross between an ET and a human. And I'm sitting there on the sofa, and I'm like, no way. I was like, no way that can be possible. Days. Huh?
Yeah, I said that goes back to biblical days. There's, a lot of people might take exception with this, but, basically when Mary was pregnant, Joseph was very upset, and he said that, I haven't known her. I'm not going to marry this woman. She's with a child, He hadn't slept with her, So this light being appears to him, and it says, this is God's child or whatever. Some people say he said, this is my child. You'll rear him as your own. So basically this being that appears to Joseph, was definitely not terrestrial. He was definitely extraterrestrial. And from other planes, some other